Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm LEEBS and here we take a look at all things gaming. The Summer Games Fest 2024 has come and unleashed an absolute torrent of games, with the indie scene in particular drenching my YouTube feed. I've already taken a look at some of the bigger announcements, so check that out if you'd like a quick recap. But for this video, we're going to take a look at the indie side of things, and I hope you like indie games because my god, there are a lot of cool looking ones coming soon. And when I say soon, I mean in the next 6 to 18 months, so some are definitely sooner, but most are a little bit later. Narrowing this list down to a manageable size was definitely a challenge because there is no way I can cover them all. But let's get to it and take a peek at some of what's on offer inside the indie space. Also, these games are in no particular order, but let's start off with one that's a bit more of an obvious choice. The Killer Bean is back and looks as goofy and fun as ever. This time, Killer Bean is out for vengeance after being betrayed by the Shadow Agency. Players will take control of the angry coffee bean in both first and third person modes while shooting their way through a roguelike campaign that changes on each playthrough. According to the Steam page, locations, missions, characters, bosses, and the story will all change on each playthrough. On top of the procedurally generated missions, you'll have access to skill trees with a mix of stealth, melee, guns, and parkour combat. There will also be different factions who don't get along, ragdoll physics, and a number of vehicles to obtain. In the trailer, you could even see zombie beans swarming the player, and if the zombie beans aren't called zombeans, we riot. Even though the character is obviously ridiculous, if Killer Bean can actually deliver on the game's mechanics, then this is likely to be one hell of a fun time. There's no confirmed date yet, but Killer Bean will be releasing into early access sometime this summer on Steam. Here's another one that's getting a lot of attention, and one look at the gameplay will tell you why. Screenbound is a platformer that you play in both 2D and 3D at the same time. While walking around the 3D world and holding your totally not patent infringement Q-Boy, you will find that combat takes place on the 2D screen, and the game's puzzles and exploration take place primarily in the 3D space. So yeah, this one looks like it'll be a really interesting brain bender at times. Screenbound is being developed and published by two teams, Crescent Moon Games and Those Dang Games. No announced release date or word on console versions at this time, so it's likely still a ways away. Switching gears a bit, Mega Cat Studios gave us a look at their 2D pixel art take on Five Nights at Freddy's called Into the Pit. Based on the Fazbear Frights novels of the same name, Into the Pit follows Oswald, a kid who's not happy with his boring life. That is, until he explores a dilapidated pizza joint and discovers that the ball pit has sent him back into the past. In true Five Nights fashion, Oswald must survive his own 5 nights of terror while also time traveling to find clues which will help him save himself and his father. By now, Five Nights at Freddy's is a household name in the gaming world, so it's always cool to see new takes on such an established game world. And if the game is as slick as the animations, I think we'll be in for a fun time, a morbidly disturbing time, but a fun one nonetheless. While there isn't a concrete date for this one just yet, Into the Pit is being developed as part of the series' 10th anniversary, which happens to be this August 8th, so we'll likely find out more before then. Remember the bizarre Choo Choo Charles game that came out a couple years back? Well, Two Star Games, the dev behind the creepy spider train creature, is working on their next release, and it isn't what you might expect. So yeah, not at all the kind of game I was expecting anyway. In Cuff Bust, it's up to you and up to 20 other players to escape from prison, which begs the question, what did these little furballs do to end up in prison? The game is advertising a lot of interesting features such as destructible environments, proximity chat, lots of extraction-style tasks, interconnected escape routes, and the ability to betray your fellow prisoners. That last one adds a PvPvE slant to an already chaotic-looking game. I expect Cuff Bust will be pretty popular as a stream game for a while, if it delivers on its promises, that is. Unfortunately, we won't know more about that until the game is released sometime next year. And speaking of stream games, take a look at this one from indie dev Ego Bounds.
Gravity is extremely ruthless, so every fan of games like Getting Over It or Jump King should feel right at home.
So there you have it. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one since it's pretty self-explanatory, but I do like how the egg shape dictates how you get around the environment for both rolling and jumping. It's also clever that you can survive a fall by becoming an egg yolk, but becoming an egg yolk means that you can then slip through the cracks accidentally. That's a neat little variable to the formula. No release date for this one yet, but you can expect to see it in your social feeds full of streamers raging about it when it does finally come out. Announced back in 2021, Slitterhead has finally been revealed, and yeah, it looks like this. This one is being developed by Bokeh Game Studio, a new Japanese indie dev headed by Kiichiro Toyama, the brain behind the Silent Hill series. Taking place in Kowloon, which I believe is supposed to be a fictionalized version of the walled city Kowloon? I'm not sure about that, I may be wrong. In any case, players take the role of a being called Hyoki, who, despite having no memories, is hellbent on destroying all the Slitterheads who have taken up residence in the densely packed city. Players will be able to possess different bodies using their blood as weapons against the Slitterheads, while also zipping from body to body around the world as a means of rapid traversal. Some of the people you possess will have a higher affinity with Hyoki, which seems to be the key to understanding just what's going on in the city. Fortunately, the wait is almost over, as Slitterhead actually does have a release date for this November 8th, and you'll be able to play it on PC, PS4, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. Now for one that immediately went on my wish list halfway through the reveal. I've always enjoyed metroidvanias, science fiction, and Greek mythology, and Somber Echoes is all three of those rolled into one badass looking package. From developer Rock Pocket Games, which is really fun to say for some reason, you take control of Adrasteia. In Greek myth, Adrasteia was charged with helping to keep the birth of Zeus secret from his father Cronus. But in Somber Echoes, Adrasteia is aboard a Greco-Roman space vessel named Atrametos, which has suffered some kind of catastrophe resulting in creatures from another dimension setting up shop on the ship. On top of that, your twin sister Harmonia seems to be wrapped up in the mystery, and it's your job to stop her and figure out what the hell is going on. As with all Metroidvanias, expect branching exploration, secrets to uncover, and lots of combat, which includes a parry mechanic. Regrettably, there's no release date or console-specific information just yet, but I'm more than happy to wait until it's ready. This next one has also received a fair bit of attention since its reveal, and it's no surprise as to why. The aptly named Boy and Deer is a cinematic platformer which follows the journey of, unsurprisingly, a boy and a deer. After some kind of tragedy strikes the young boy, he seemingly runs away, only to find a young fawn who, from the trailer's visual storytelling, has also endured some sort of tragedy. As the player progresses through the game, the deer grows up, eventually becoming something more than just a regular deer. Per the Steam page description, this growth will be instrumental in overcoming the game's various challenges. As is the case with a lot of these indie announcements, developer Lifeline Games hasn't listed any particulars just yet about when we can expect Deer and Boy. Neva is a 2D adventure game that continues the theme of traveling with an animal companion that gradually ages up as you progress, and if you recognize the art style, then you've likely played another game from developer Nomada Studios, Gris, however the hell you want to pronounce it. Taken from the game's Steam page, Neva chronicles the story of Alba, a young woman bound to a curious wolf cub following a traumatic encounter with dark forces. Together, they embark on a perilous journey through a once beautiful world as it slowly decays around them. If you want my advice, I'd keep a box of tissues close by if you plan to play it when it comes out sometime later this year. For that matter, Deer and Boy will likely tug at your tear ducts, so maybe keep one around for that one as well. No concrete release date for this one yet, but it is slated for sometime in 2024. Now let's completely switch gears with Fallen Aces. Rather than summarize what this game is, I think the Steam page description hits perfectly. The Aces, watchful guardians of Switchblade City, are being taken down one by one. Now it's up to one man with two fists to get to the bottom of all of it. Fallen Aces is a crime noir FPS that plays right out of the 90s and looks like it's right out of the comics. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what it is, isn't it? In Fallen Aces, you'll be using your fists, knives, trash cans, frying pans, nail guns, and no telling what the hell else, to shoot, bash, and bludgeon your way through non-linear levels, which means there will almost certainly be some manner of immersive sim mechanics involved in the game. Episode 1 of Fallen Aces will be releasing this week, June 14th, with more episodes to come during the early access phase. Torn Banner Studios has announced No More Room in Hell 2, the sequel to their popular 2011's multiplayer Source mod. And if you're a Left 4 Dead fan, you may want to check this one out. Like the original Source mod, the sequel will boast up to 8-player co-op across a massive map, as well as proximity voice chat, weapons and gear to help you survive, deadly zombie mods, ammo scarcity, and most importantly, permadeath. So if you don't make it out of the run, well, you don't make it out of the run. Fittingly, No More Room in Hell 2 drops into early access this Halloween 2024. In my last video where we looked at some of the bigger game announcements from the Summer Game Fest, I mentioned that I was getting a little burned on turn-based RPGs, but Sacrifier from developer Pixelated Milk looks really good. Sacrifier combines 3D and pixel graphics in a really neat way, and even the combat is a blend of turn-based and real-time. The game will also have music by Motoi Sakuraba, who is well known for his Dark Souls music as well as the Tell series, Star Ocean, and a lot more. Not a lot is known about the story, but in true JRPG fashion, it includes gods, demons, and faith themes that permeate the genre. I always like it when I get tired of a certain genre and then some indie dev steps into the arena and creates something like this that, despite my burnout, still makes me want to play it. No word on the final release date for this, but the devs completed their Kickstarter back in 2021 and had originally planned for a 2022 release for the PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, as well as the Switch. Assuming those platforms haven't changed, perhaps 2024 will finally be the year it lands? Another genre that seems to be giving people a little fatigue is the torrent of Souls-likes coming out these days. But I did want to highlight Inotria The Last Song, which looks more like a AAA title than an indie. I already covered Inotria in my recap of the bigger announcements, so I won't go into too much here. In short, the game takes place in an Italian folklore-inspired world where the player uses masks to augment their abilities, and if you haven't heard the game's music yet, you should really check it out. I'd play some for you here, but I'm wary of the YouTube copyright centuries. Inotria The Last Song is coming out this September 18th on PC and PS5. The devs had a previous Xbox version that was cancelled unfortunately, but maybe eventually. Moving right along into something different, we've got Wonderstop, an adventure life sim from a pretty interesting development team, Ivy Road. This is an indie team led by Davey Rendon, at least I think I'm pronouncing that right, the mind behind the Stanley Parable. The team also has industry workers from the likes of BioShock 2 Minerva's Den and Minecraft as well. Typically in these life sim games, they're set in some sort of idyllic world, and even though there's combat, there's not a lot of actual conflict to be found because the stories are all about feel-good moments. And while I'm sure Wonderstop will rest comfortably inside that formula, the main protagonist does seem to have something darker lurking beneath.
I can stop running. This is good for me. I need to enjoy this. I feel good. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy.
In Wonderstop, you'll be managing a tea shop, growing your own ingredients, talking to the town folks, and decorating the shop. This is all typical fare for the genre, and I quite like the aesthetics of the game world, especially the complex-looking tea distillery, but I'm really interested to see what the brain that came up with the Stanley Parable can do with such an established game formula. There's no word on the release date yet, but it is announced for sometime later this year on PC and PlayStation 5. Not everyone will be interested in this one, but if you are, you're likely really into it. Trailblazers Into the March is an interesting-looking roguelite colony sim strategy game where you manage a giant land ship that functions as your colony, shelter, weaponry, and everything ship. As it's a roguelite, the game's loop centers around trekking through the march, a dangerous frontier, and some sort of graveyard of the world's civilization. Naturally, moving further into the march to discover its secrets is at the heart of the game's narrative, and doubtless the further you go in, the tougher the journey will become. At the start of every run, you'll buy your own landship, of which there are many, recruit a crew, trade for supplies, grab some specific quests, and then venture forth. Similar to other games in the genre, you'll be tasked with maintaining your crew's daily lives, defending your home, and exploring what's what to progress. Anyone familiar with RimWorld will know the score pretty quickly. The wrinkle, of course, is that unlike RimWorld, your colony is on the move and will definitely run into other colony ships that aren't so friendly. And since this is a roguelite, you can expect each run to provide a good amount of replayability. The release date is still TBA for this one, so I'd expect at earliest a late 2024 release, and likely it'll be more like 2025. This next one comes from developer Heart Machine, the team behind Hyperlight Drifter, and follows on the heels of that game. Hyperlight Breaker will be familiar to fans of the original, but also unfamiliar since the setting has changed from an isometric pixel art game to a 3D setting with a bright and flashy aesthetic. Breaker features procedurally generated worlds, enemies, loot, and large open biomes and labyrinths. You'll be able to get around the sprawling world using hoverboards, gliders, and some parkour movement. While you're out in the overgrowth, you'll also be collecting resources to upgrade your home settlement over time. Unsurprisingly, there's a fair bit of hype around this one, and we'll all get to see what's next for the series later this summer when it launches into early access on PC. Here's one that was announced quite a while ago, but I forgot about it, and now it's back up there on my list of ones I'm personally looking forward to the most. Mandragora is a 2.5D Castlevania Souls-like with an absolutely incredible aesthetic. The deep dive revealed 6 classes with 96 passive skills and over 200 active skills, more than 350 wearable pieces of gear, consumables and ingredients, character customizations, main quests, side quests, alternate endings, and a nice sounding soundtrack. The story itself doesn't stray too far from the mold, with a world overrun by monsters, and of course it's your job to clean it all up. Naturally, there will be plenty of tough enemies, allies, boss fights to be had, new game plus for harder challenges, and apparently you'll also have to make some moral choices in the game. I know the style of game isn't for everyone, but I'm really looking forward to it myself, and fortunately, it's set to come out later this year for PC, Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. Rika is a Baba Yaga-inspired exploration crafting builder sort of game that will immediately catch your attention thanks to the chicken-legged hut that walks around the environment with you. Being developed by the newer folks of Emberstorm Entertainment, you play as Rika, one of those, an apprentice witch of the legendary Baba Yaga.
We call him Baba Yaga.
After creating and customizing your own witch, you will build and decorate your own walking cottage, craft and practice magic, go on quests, find new biomes like swamps and villages, all while uncovering the secrets of your mentor. If any of that sounds up your alley, then you'll be happy to hear that Rika announces into early access August of this year. Anton Blast is a 2D action platformer that's all about speed and destruction. You play as Dynamite Antoine, and Satan has stolen your spirit collection. Yes, that kind of spirit. And it's your job to get it back with the help of a disgraced casino owner, Brulo. Taken from the game's Steam page, it says, "Your mission in every level is simple. Set Brulo's detonators, find Anton's spirit, and escape before happy hour ends." There's not much else to say. If this is your kind of game, you know who you are, and luckily for you, this one does have a release date. Anton Blast comes out this November 12th for the PC and Nintendo Switch. Yellow Brick Games showed off their first outing, Eternal Strands, and this is another one that went straight to my wish list before the trailer ended. This action-adventure game has you playing as a magical weaver named Bryn and includes a lot of giant bosses to scale and defeat, a la Shadow of the Colossus. You know, I'm really surprised it's taken developers this long to start implementing more mechanics like this. Yeah, there have been a scattering of games that throw giant climbable monsters at you, but not nearly as many as you would think given the popularity of the concept. In Eternal Strands, you'll be able to use your magic to rip up trees and boulders to toss at enemies, summon ice walls to block attacks, climb up every surface, or at least the developer claims you can, and do things like use blizzards to enhance your ice abilities to unlock new pathways of exploration, or use fire to burn through dried trees and grass. Naturally, there will be secrets to uncover, and abilities to find and master, and a story to discover along the way. Eternal Strands is listed for sometime in 2025 over on Yellow Brick Games' website for PC and possibly consoles, but no official word just yet. So there you go, 20 new indie games to look forward to soonish. I considered adding some honorable mentions here, but there were just too many to pick from and I really didn't want this video to go on too long. This is a new channel, but if you're watching it and like it, let me know and I'll round up another list of 20 cool looking indies in the works. God knows it won't be too hard to find 20 more, or 40 more for that matter. Anyway, that's all for me today. I usually do a weekly news video, which I'm switching to releasing every Thursday, but this past week has just been so crazy with all the announcements that I don't have time. However, look out for it next Thursday to stay up to date on what's going on in the gaming world. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, I hope you have a good day. See you next time.